The Retroid Pocket Mini has been announced, and I have a few thoughts. I've been a sort of champion of the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, and so I want to talk about whether this is the next big thing, whether it's for you, what are they trying to do with the Retroid Pocket Mini. And so let's just start with the specs. This is all very new. It's a 3.7-inch display. Now, Anbernic are pumping out these lovely 4-inch 4x3 displays. So this is a 3.7-inch, a little bit smaller. It's a 1280 by 960 4x3 AMOLED display. AMOLED is a more power efficient version of OLED. OLED is the screen with the lovely deep blacks and nice rich colors and usually very sharp. And so at 1280 by 960 we're getting a very high pixel per inch ratio. So it's going to be an incredibly nice screen on such a small device. Whether that's overkill, I'm not sure. You will have to decide. 215 grams, but I wanted to quickly compare that to the Retroid Pocket because it's quite an ergonomic device. So the Retroid Pocket 2S with the grip, 250 grams. So 215 grams as opposed to the Retroid Pocket 2S is quite light. So that's pretty good as opposed to the RG450M, which is also a smallish device, 260 grams. So 250 grams is a nice light device for a mini device. It's got a Snapdragon chip. Now, we don't know which one yet. It'll probably be, by the time you watch this, you'll probably know. It's a Snapdragon chip. We'll talk about that now. So let's talk about design. I'll put a bunch of the design pictures up on the screen as I speak. So it's got that beautiful front glass panel. All of these are 3D renders, hey? So I'm going to talk about that now, about the fact that there are no real photos out in the wild of this device yet. So it's a front glass panel. It has those very big bezels. People say the screen itself is bezel-less, but they've made these huge bezels around the screen, which has got a retro look. We can argue the whole retro thing, but a clean bezel-less design is very nice. So that is a pity, but whatever. And then colors. I'm not sure why they changed all the colors. They got a bunch of user feedback and they changed the colors. The chap from Retroid on Twitter talked to me about it, and I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like the first lot of colors were great. I don't know why they changed them. Anyway, you can decide. I'll put them up on the screen now and you can have a look. And then we'll talk about the joysticks. It's got those really nice Retroid joysticks that we're used to on the 2S, on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. They're very, very good joysticks. It made this less pocketable, so obviously it'll make this mini device less pocketable. But again, we'll talk about those benefits now. It's got their usual dome switch D-pad, which I'm all here for. I love their D-pad. It's my favorite D-pad, I think. Okay, it's not my favorite D-pad. I just really like it. The shoulder buttons look much like the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro shoulder buttons, and although we had issues with these in the beginning, they've perfected them and they are really nice, very comfortable, and they probably have the same sort of muted click to the buttons, the bumpers, the L and R buttons. And then ergonomics versus pocketability. You must tell me what you think in the comments, but it's going to be much like the Anbernic RG Arc, where they sacrifice pocketability for just being a very comfy device. And I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence because I like a pocketable device. You like Ioneo's Micro, I think it's called the Micro, is very pocketable. Just slide it in your pocket, whereas these devices are not. So, sacrifice pocketability for comfiness. I don't know. I like the comfiness of this. This is probably my favorite device at the moment. So it is what it is. And then a very big deal, and this was the turning point for me. When I saw Retroid have released a premium mini device, I was like, why? I couldn't really get my mind around it. And then Chris on Twitter from Retroid confirmed it is compatible with the Retroid dock. Now, when I reviewed the Retroid dock, I was like, why is it off-center on the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro? Not thinking about the future-proofing of it for their new onslaught of products. And this is probably going to fit in it nicely, and it's going to dock on it nicely, and you've got all that Snapdragon power for a dockable device. And so I said on Twitter, it's the most powerful mini dockable device, which is very unique and useful for a lot of people. And then what will it play? We don't know which Snapdragon device, but again, Chris on Twitter teased me saying, you're going to love which one it is. So I'm guessing it's going to be fairly powerful for what it is. Obviously, they've got to manage costs versus the size and, whether it's worth putting a super powerful chip in such a tiny device. But I think it will be able to play like PS2 GameCube. What else did I write here? It's going to play Wii, 3DS, and Switch as well. You know, whatever the emulators for those systems can do at this stage, because a lot of those emulators can't do everything, it can do because it's powerful enough. So the limitations of the power is not there. And I think the compatibility of Snapdragon is better with a lot of those emulators. So that is good. I'm a big 3DS fan. So I think, you know, a tiny device like that, switching between full screen, not all games on 3DS are going to be ideal for that, but it is nice to have that. I do prefer 3DS on here because I can do them on a vertical layout, and I really like that. Need to do my setup guide for that device. And so, you know, you can play 3DS, you can play Switch, and you can dock it with the PS2, and you can do many other things. And I said in my Viteur video that these sort of XR glasses are a big deal for the future of handheld gaming, and like here we are. Here I am with a ridiculous looking thing on my head, but these are XR glasses. These are the Viteur XR glasses, and these are going to be compatible with this very powerful tiny device. And so you've got a very pocketable device that you can carry around with you and do a bunch of things. Then you get home and you've got this little cable. Just like you can do with a Cube, but I think it's going to work better with this, specifically because it's got more power. I think there are a few little limitations with the Anbinic video out. But anyway, and you just plug it in, and you've got mobile gaming on a tiny device, and you've got a big screen. That is a bit of a game changer, I feel. Like if you've got these, I know it's all very expensive, but eventually these things are going to get cheaper, and this is where it's headed. Like a tiny device that can play a whole bunch of things, and you've got your big screen. You know, I thought of this as I was lying in bed with my head against the back of my bed, looking up into the ceiling in complete darkness, playing a game while my wife sleeps, and I thought, a tiny device to do this is a big deal. And then the other thing is, and something that I'm going to be talking about more and more in my videos for Android specifically, is that the WinLater emulator is getting better and better, and more fellow nerds out there are giving their specs and settings for WinLater to play Steam games. You get your Steam game from your computer, you put it on your Android device, and you play it with WinLater. We're going to talk about this more in the future, because glasses like this with a tiny device playing your PC games on a tiny Android handheld, what the actual F? And that's why you should probably opt for the larger storage option, because the future of that is kind of real, and it's happening. I mean, it's something that I definitely think is going to get better and better as we move forward. I wouldn't say buy the device for that, but I'm just saying it is exciting for the future. And then versus the RG Cube, I would say the only thing that the RG Cube has over the Anbinic Mini as it stands, as we know it right now, is the square screen. This is a lovely novelty device. It's got this beautiful D-pad. It is a nice device, and like I say, it's my favorite device right now. But in practicality, the Retroid Pocket Mini is definitely a easier recommendation for me as a YouTuber to you as an audience, because this is more of a novelty item for someone that has a few devices. But if someone says to me, I'm looking for my first device, I've got quite a bit of money to spend, we'll talk about the cost of this thing now. I've got quite a bit of money to spend, I want to buy a really nice device for Christmas for myself, what should I get? The Retroid Pocket Mini is probably going to be my standard recommendation for the next, the way things are going, the next 4 months. Okay, so in terms of pricing, I think we are headed for a very similar competition as we did with the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro and the RG556, the Anbinic RG556, where this is slightly underpowered with a unique screen, and then we've got, let's do this, and then we've got the Retroid Pocket Mini, just like the Retroid. It's going to be more powerful, with a more sort of standard layout and, like I say, easier recommendation. For me, I don't know, a lot of my friends like this, but for me, this is an easier recommendation because it does everything kind of perfectly, whereas this does not everything perfectly. And so I think it's going to be a similar thing. It's going to be more expensive, but it's going to be an easier recommendation. And I do think it is going to be quite pricey though. Just like the AYN, this Mini is a premium version of the Odin 2. I think it's going to, sorry, I'm jumping around with a lot of devices here, but I think it's going to be like a premium price device. It's going to be more than the Retroid Pocket Pro, I'm pretty sure. I'm worried it's going to go over $250 because I think that's too much. But the design, the full glass fronts, the whole thing, it's going to be expensive. So let's see if it goes over that 250 mark. It's going to be a hard recommendation to make. Maybe it's 259. I don't know, but let's see what happens. And then I'm going to say something that's going to be a little bit controversial because I know the Retroid guys won't be happy with me saying this, or any of these manufacturers, in fact, because more and more I'm saying this. Do not pre-order this device. All the marketing material right now is 3D rendering. Someone was like, oh wow, they changed the colors so quickly. I'm like, yes, because they just had to change the colors on the 3D editor that they're using. There are no devices out there in the wild. We haven't seen any production samples yet. So what a lot of consumers don't realize, like when you go to, if you're American, you go to a place like Best Buy in South Africa, we go to a place like Game or Incredible Connection, a lot of those devices, and all of those devices have been through sort of a rigorous user satisfaction testing. A lot of these devices have done that, whereas these are straight from the factory to your hands. It's the Wild West in terms of the quality control from that point. They've got quality control in the factory, but we had problems with the triggers here. We had problems with the screen here. There was problem with the calibration of the screen here. This was pretty much a flawless launch, which go Retroid. This as well, pretty much flawless, I think. But we've had a few dramas where people have pre-ordered a device, it arrived, and the first batch, there were major issues. So my recommendation and my standing recommendation is do not pre-order these devices. Wait for your trusted reviewers to review the product and say, listen, I think it's good. Here are the problems. Are you willing to deal with them and move on? Like the Retroid Pocket 2S was such an easy recommendation because it was just perfect from launch, but we have had issues along the way. And then I want to talk about the future because this kind of is getting me quite excited about the future of this. I'm always talking about, I just released a video, the future of retro gaming. I've been talking about sort of the dawn of the premium handheld. It kind of started with the RG Cube, and then the Mini came about, the AYN Mini, and now we've got the Retroid Pocket Mini. And I do think we are in that age of expensive premium devices. I said it was coming because where is this market going? Where are we headed? And that is an untapped market. People with a bit more money that want just a really special, cool device because they're not going to buy a bunch of devices like us nerds. I also think it's interesting because with the Snapdragon processor, it allows compatibility with emulators that are currently not quite there yet. Emulators such as the PS Vita emulator, this device, because it is a cheaper, more powerful device, compared to something like the AYN Mini, will motivate developers to push those sorts of emulators. And so it's an exciting device for me. So how do you feel about this? I was on the fence about an overpowered, sort of over-designed mini device that's expensive. But once I figured out it was dockable, I thought about the XR glasses. For people in that sort of market, this is a really, really special device. It's not the sort of one-and-done device of the Odin 2, but I do think it may be the small device to beat for 2024.